1984 by George Orwell. Full audiobook summary. Mind control, truth, and freedom explained. What if the world around you wasn't just controlling what you do, but controlling what you think? What if truth itself could be rewritten, and you wouldn't even notice? There's a system that thrives when you stop questioning, when you accept, when you obey. And the most dangerous part? Most people don't realize it's happening. George Orwell's 1984 is one of the most influential works ever written about power, control, and truth. Published in 1949, it became a global warning about how societies can slowly drift into total control without people noticing until it's too late. This book matters because it addresses a deep fear many people have but rarely articulate: the fear of losing control over their own thoughts. It speaks to anyone who has ever felt manipulated, misled, or pressured to conform. It challenges the idea that freedom is guaranteed, and instead shows how easily it can disappear when people stop thinking critically. For you, the listener, this book isn't just about politics or history. It's about awareness. It's about understanding how influence works, how narratives are shaped, and how your perception of reality can be subtly guided without you realizing it. The first core idea is this: control the narrative, and you control reality. When information is filtered, altered, or repeated enough times, it starts to feel true, even if it isn't. People don't just believe facts, they believe what they hear consistently. Think about your daily life: news, social media, conversations. They all shape your view of the world. If something is repeated often enough, your brain begins to accept it, not because it's true, but because it's familiar. The key message here is simple: repetition creates belief. Let that sink in. Repetition creates belief. If you don't question what you hear, you slowly surrender your ability to think independently. And this matters because once your perception is shaped, your decisions follow. You act based on what you believe is real. So if your reality is manipulated, your life choices are too. The second core idea is the danger of constant surveillance, not just physically, but mentally. When people feel watched, judged, or monitored, they begin to self-censor. They stop expressing ideas. They stop questioning. They shrink. You don't need someone to silence you if you silence yourself. In modern life, this can show up in subtle ways: fear of judgment, fear of being wrong, fear of standing out. Over time, this fear trains you to stay within invisible boundaries. Here's the repeated truth: when you feel watched, you limit yourself. When you limit yourself, you lose your freedom. And when freedom fades, growth stops. This lesson matters because your ability to think freely is directly tied to your ability to grow, innovate, and live fully. The third idea is the power of language and how it shapes thought. If you limit the words people use, you limit the ideas they can express. And if you limit ideas, you limit thinking itself. Language isn't just communication, it's a tool for thinking. If your vocabulary shrinks, your ability to question, analyze, and challenge also shrinks. When complex ideas are reduced to simple labels, people stop exploring deeper meanings. Repeat this to yourself. Limited language leads to limited thinking. Limited thinking leads to limited freedom. In everyday life, this shows up when conversations become shallow, when people rely on buzzwords instead of understanding, when nuance disappears. This matters because clarity of thought requires clarity of language. The more precise your thinking, the more control you have over your life. The fourth core idea is psychological manipulation, the ability to make people accept contradictions. Humans can be trained to believe two opposing ideas at the same time and accept both as true. This happens when authority is never questioned, when consistency doesn't matter, only obedience does. In your life, you may have seen this in small ways. Situations where something doesn't make sense, but people go along with it anyway. Over time, this creates confusion. And confusion weakens resistance. Here's the core message. Confusion creates control. When people are confused, they stop resisting. When they stop resisting, they become easier to control. This lesson matters because clarity is power. The clearer your thinking, the harder it is for anyone to manipulate you. The final idea is perhaps the most important, the erosion of individuality. When people are pushed to conform, to think alike, to behave the same, they lose their identity. And without identity, there is no independence. In many environments, fitting in is rewarded. Standing out is discouraged. Over time, people trade authenticity for acceptance. Repeat this. Conformity feels safe, but it costs you yourself. Conformity feels safe, but it costs you yourself. This matters because your unique perspective is your strength. When you lose it, you lose your ability to create, to question, to lead. If you apply this today, start by questioning what you consume. Don't accept information just because it's repeated. Pause. Think. Ask yourself, is this actually true or just familiar? Most people ignore this, but awareness begins with attention. Pay attention to what shapes your thoughts, the content you consume, the conversations you engage in, the environments you stay in. This is where real change begins, when you take responsibility for your own thinking. Practice expressing your thoughts clearly. Expand your vocabulary. Read, reflect, and articulate your ideas, because stronger language leads to stronger thinking. Also, challenge yourself to think independently, even in small situations, especially in small situations. Ask questions. Explore different perspectives. Don't silence yourself just to fit in. And finally, protect your individuality, your thoughts, your ideas, your perspective. They matter. Because the moment you stop thinking for yourself, someone else starts thinking for you. The biggest takeaway is this: freedom doesn't disappear overnight. It fades when people stop paying attention. Stay aware, stay curious, stay in control of your own mind. If this summary helped you, subscribe for daily audiobook summaries that sharpen your thinking and expand your perspective. Next, listen to our summary of Brave New World, another powerful look at how control can shape society in ways you might not expect. Stay calm, stay focused, and keep thinking for yourself.